So you all want to become the coolest support in Overwatch. Well, Lucio is your guy. In today's video, we're going to take an extremely in-depth look at Lucio, covering everything you need to know about being a master support. First, we'll cover Lucio's strengths. Lucio can provide his team with powerful AoE healing or move speed. Amp It Up can change the direction of a fight, as it allows your team to out-sustain the enemy team or engage/disengage very quickly. Lucio is also hard to pin down, with his move speed boost, ability to wall run, and his sound wave, which provides him with a knockback. He also has damage potential even while supporting, and while it isn't super reliable, it's more than someone like Mercy can do. Finally, his ultimate grants your team extreme amounts of HP for a few seconds, and can be a total game changer. Now let's go over Lucio's weaknesses. His healing is somewhat ineffective on friendly tanks, as he has AoE healing and not Mercy's single target healing. Sometimes it can be hard to determine if you should be using your healing boost or your speed boost. Amp It Up and Sound Barrier both require good timing. 1 second too early or too late can determine the outcome of a fight. And finally, he has low HP and is really not meant for combat due to the fact that he is a support. Now let's cover Lucio's abilities as well as strategies regarding how to use them. Lucio's passive is Wall Ride. Lucio can jump onto a wall to ride along it. You can only run on one wall for a few seconds, however jumping onto new walls will reset this timer. This means that with practice, there are places on certain maps where you can wall run almost indefinitely. The best uses of Wall Ride include getting to fights faster, taking unpredictable escape routes when being chased by enemies, and preventing death when you get knocked off the map. You can also use Wall Ride to climb up corners, as you can continuously jump from one wall to the other. Use this ability to confuse enemies, but don't wall run for no reason. Staying near your team is more important than being a parkour master. Let me repeat that. There is a time and place to be a Lucio parkour master. However, usually you're going to want to be behind your team and not up in the sky running along walls. This is because you are more effective when you're actually by your team, so they can utilize your AoE healing and speed and not off on your own jumping behind the enemy lines. I'm not saying it's not cool. It's cool watching a Lucio do all that stuff, but just make sure if you're ever doing that, you have another support as well, because like I said, you're not going to be behind your team if you're off wall running everywhere. They won't be able to utilize your healing abilities. Lucio's main weapon is his Sonic Amplifier. This weapon fires 4 rounds per second in a burst, and has 20 rounds per magazine. There is a 0.25 second delay between bursts. Each projectile deals 16 damage, meaning he has a max of 64 damage per burst without headshots. Headshots deal double damage, and armor reduces the damage of each shot by 5, meaning 4 rounds that hit someone with armor will only deal 44 damage. The projectiles from Lucio's Sonic Amplifier move at a very low velocity when compared to many other weapons. Even though they have a low velocity though, they do not have bullet drop. They move in a straight line. He has a reload time of 1.25 seconds. So what do all these numbers mean? Well, it kinda just means spam this weapon whenever you can. Seriously, this weapon is very unreliable as its projectiles have a super low velocity, meaning enemies can actually dodge your shots. Fire this weapon at areas you anticipate enemies will be, maybe if they're about to come around a corner, at groups of enemies, or in choke points. There is no downside to firing your weapon. Seriously, there's no reason you shouldn't be firing. So keep firing it, and the small amounts of damage you do over the course of the game will actually add up. The alternate fire on this weapon is Sound Wave. Lucio knocks back enemies with a blast of sound, consuming 4 rounds from his magazine and also going on a 4-second cooldown. It deals 25 damage per shot and cannot headshot. Before we go over the strategies for using this, I'm going to tell you some things you can and cannot knock back, because you might not have known these. You cannot knock back a Winston or a Reinhardt through their shields. However, you can run right through them and knock them back in that way. Basically, you can run into the Reinhardt through his shield and knock him back. That still works. You cannot knock back a Bastion out of Sentry Mode, a Zarya who's got her barrier around her, or Roadhog's hooks while they're in the air. But you can, however, knock back a Riptire from Junkrat, although I highly recommend against it because being close enough to knock it back means you're also close enough for it to kill you. So there's really no benefit to doing that. But there is a benefit to knocking back a Winston while he's jumping through the air, because that will push him away. You can also knock back a Reinhardt while he's charging. It won't bring him out of the charge, but it will change the direction of it, which can be useful. And you can knock back Zenyatta while he's using his ultimate Transcendence to get him away from his team, therefore taking away the healing benefit he's trying to provide them. Other than those very specific scenarios, there are many ways you should be using this ability. First, keep Mei, Roadhog, Zarya, McCree, Reaper, and Reinhardt away from you at all costs. Realistically, you should be knocking back any enemy that gets too close to you. Those are just the most dangerous ones. Next, you should be using this ability to disrupt the enemy team and keep them off objectives. When enemies are on a point or a payload, it can be extremely beneficial to use Sound Barrier to disrupt them. Disrupting enemies is also great when they're ulting, especially against people like Genji, who need to be very close to use their ultimate. After performing one of these said disruptions, you can use your speed boost to retreat to safety, as your team takes advantage of the distraction. One thing I've found quite effective is trying to separate the enemy tanks away from their supports and damage dealers. The large separation on the enemy team should allow for your team to pick up some easy kills. I would also like to take this point to mention that almost all of my tips apply only when you can perform them safely. As public games often only have one support, you staying alive is crucial to your team, so you should make sure your safety is a #1 priority. Finally, my last tip for using Soundwave is use it to knock people off the map. This is great on maps like Ilios, where you can take down a tank on full HP just by booping them over the ledge. Crossfade is Lucio's bread and butter, and it's the reason he's a great support. Lucio continuously energizes himself and nearby teammates with music. He can switch between two songs, one which heals nearby allies and one that provides a speed boost to nearby allies. Both modes have a radius of 30 meters around Lucio, but teammates do need to have line of sight to receive the effect. The payload will not break line of sight. Healing Aura grants nearby teammates 12.5 health per second, and Speed Aura provides teammates with 30% faster move speed. You can switch between these auras at any time without cooldown. Both auras are most effective when your team is grouped around you. So when should you use each aura? Healing Aura should be used whenever nearby teammates are low on HP, or during fights when damage is going both ways, because the Healing Aura will increase your team's survivability. In general, Healing Aura is the way to go. You will rarely go wrong with Healing Aura. However, there are some instances where Speed Aura is extremely helpful. The first is very simple. Use Speed Aura at the beginning of games to rush to the fight faster. The same goes after respawning to get to the battle faster. Important note, when you respawn, check to see how many teammates are dead. If 2 or more teammates are dead, wait for them to respawn, that way you can help them get faster because remember, you share your speed boost. Other uses for the Speed Aura include helping teammates run from enemy ultimates, helping you or teammates get to health packs faster, to engage the enemy team faster, catching them off guard, or to quickly disengage from a fight you don't think your team can win. I said Healing Aura was your bread and butter, however in my videos you'll probably see me using Speed Aura a lot more. And this is because oftentimes when you're on defense and you keep shoving the enemy team away from you, you will be on full health most of the time. And whenever my team is on full health, I like to be on Speed Aura. That way it's harder for Widowmakers to, land a pick on our team when we're all on full HP because we're moving faster. And it's just generally harder for the enemy team to get a grasp of what we're doing because we're all moving a little bit faster, we're all ready for the fight, and we all can react very quickly if something happens to one of our teammates because we have that strong move speed boost. Some final notes about Crossfade. Multiple Lucio's Crossfade effects do not stack. You can only have one Healing Aura and one Speed Aura affecting you at a time. So if you have multiple Lucios, make sure you're using different auras. And finally, you can look under your crosshair in-game to see which aura you're using and how many teammates it's affecting. Lucio's final non-ultimate ability is Amp It Up. Lucio increases the volume of his speakers, enhancing the effect of his current aura. The boost has a duration of 3 seconds and is on a 12-second cooldown. When using this, Lucio's Healing Aura restores 40 HP per second, and his speed boost is increased to 110%. Use Amp It Up on your healing when teammates start dropping HP rapidly, but use Amp It Up on your speed boost when you face enemy ultimates like Reaper's Death Blossom, Junkrat's Riptire, Diva's Self-Destruct, Genji's Dragon Blade, or Hanzo's Dragon Strike. You will not be able to out-heal the damage done by any of these ultimates, so use Amp It Up on your speed boost to avoid the damage entirely. And finally, Lucio's ultimate ability is Sound Barrier. Lucio jumps in the air and produces a temporary shield on all nearby allies when he lands on the ground. The area of effectiveness is the same as your auras, 30 meters with line of sight. The shield grants teammates a 500 HP shield, which degrades by 100 HP per second until it is depleted. When using Sound Barrier, I recommend switching to your Speed Aura, as your teammates will only be taking damage to their shields for a few seconds, and will not need the benefit of HP regen. I recommend saving this ultimate for certain situations, the most common one being when most of your team is engaged with most of the enemy team at close range. Basically, there's a mess of teammates surrounded by a mess of enemies and you're all in close range and nobody knows what's going on. Use your sound barrier here and there's no reason any of your teammates should die. And most players in Overwatch have enough skill to know that when you use your sound barrier, they have a ton of HP, so they will go all in and usually it'll result in your team winning the fight. There are also many ultimate abilities in this game that you synergize well with, as well as some that you counter. Reaper's Death Blossom and Genji's Dragon Blade both go very well with Sound Barrier, as the biggest downside they have to their ultimates is their low HP. Giving them a Sound Barrier will prevent them from dying during their ultimate and can sometimes even result in a team wipe. It's a very powerful strategy. You also counter many enemy ultimates as well. Roadhog's Whole Hog, Soldier 76's Tactical Visor, Zarya's Graviton Surge, McCree's Deadeye, Tracer's Pulse Bomb, Reaper's Death Blossom, Genji's Dragon Blade, Pharah's Barrage, and Reinhardt's Earth Shatter, if you don't get hit by it, are all countered by Sound Barrier. As you give your team so much HP, there's not much they'll be able to do to you during their effect. I recommend not using Sound Barrier against D.Va's Self-Destruct or Junkrat's Riptire, as they both deal a lot of damage and are more easily escaped by using Amp It Up on your speed boost. I really think using Sound Barrier in these situations is usually a waste, unless it's a last-ditch effort. And this is because if you use Amp It Up on your speed boost, your teammates can disperse, meaning Junkrat can only get one or two of them with his tire, and D.Va really shouldn't get anyone, as her mech takes a few seconds to explode. Now let's go over the different hero matchups you'll encounter when you're playing Lucio. For this ultimate guide, I found it actually quite difficult to classify enemy heroes into a category due to the fact that Lucio isn't meant for combat. So when I give these explanations and I tell you where heroes belong, if you disagree, be sure to tell me why you disagree. I'll probably actually agree with you because I had trouble, placing these into different categories myself. The first category is good matchups for Lucio. Reaper is a good matchup for Lucio because you can knock him back with your sound wave and use your move speed boost to stay out of his high damage zone. Winston is another good matchup because once again, you can knock him back so he can't even damage you because his main weapon requires him to be up close. You can then use your move speed to escape. Genji should have a very hard time actually hitting you with just about anything because your move speed boost will make it very hard to land shurikens. Roadhog is countered by you because you can once again knock him back and your move speed boost makes it a little bit harder for him to hook you. Just don't get too close because he still can hook you, it's just a little bit harder when your move speed is higher and you're jumping off of walls. I think Mercy is a good matchup for you because I think Lucio is a better support right now than Mercy, and because in the off chance that you get close to her and you actually have to fight her, I think your move speed and the fact that you can knock her back and disrupt her and then get away and also self-heal, I think you will survive better in combat. And also I think if you see the combat going not your way, you can escape. Basically, I think you have kill potential on her while she doesn't have kill potential on you. So there's really no risk in fighting her. Now, I'm going to get some people that disagree with me here, but I think Mei is actually countered by Lucio. Sure, she will freeze you if she gets close enough, and sure, her ice wall can be annoying, but you're not going to let her get close enough. You can knock her back, you can use your move speed boost and amp it up to get away, and if she uses her ice wall, guess what? You run on walls. There's no reason she shouldn't actually be countered by you. Not only this, but you should be behind your team and near your teammates at all times. By the time she freezes you, an ally should be locked onto her and already trying to take her down to keep you alive. Now for the matchups that, in my opinion, are bad for Lucio. The first being Pharah. One of your biggest strengths as Lucio is the fact that you're hard to hit with your move speed boost. However, Pharah doesn't need to worry about this because she deals splash damage, and she deals a lot of it. To make matters worse, you're going to have a very hard time hitting her with your low velocity projectiles, meaning it's kind of a one-sided fight. Avoid Pharah at all costs. The next bad matchup for you is Zarya, and this is, in my opinion, it could be a neutral matchup, but I'm going to list it as bad. And this is because whenever Zarya places a barrier on herself or a teammate, you can no longer knock them back, which is one of your main escape mechanisms. So if Zarya shields someone like a Winston or a Reaper, you're going to have a harder time getting away from them because you can't push them away from you. And if you try, you'll just be increasing Zarya's damage. I personally think Bastion is a terrible matchup for Lucio. I've heard people argue it the other way, saying Lucio counters Bastion, but I have some things to say that would prove otherwise. For one, Bastion doesn't need to land a lot of shots on you to kill you. If you're exposed, he can kill you in under 1 second. That's crazy. You will not have time to escape. You will not have time to amp it up and run away. You are just dead. Not only this, but he does the same thing to teammates. He will damage teammates much faster than you can heal them, negating your heal effect entirely. And finally, you cannot knock Bastion out of his sentry mode, so if you do manage to flank around behind him, you still don't have a guaranteed kill. If he hears you or sees you coming, you can't knock him out of sentry mode and he will drop you. Now let's move on to the even matchups, starting with Soldier 76. Soldier 76 can place his biotic field to negate pretty much any damage you do to him with your sonic amplifier, and you can make it hard for him to hit you with your move speed boost and then heal up when you get low. It's kind of a stalemate unless someone comes and tips the scales, which is why I list it as an even matchup. Torbjorn is another even matchup in my opinion, simply because you're not a big threat to him, but he's also not a big threat to you. His turrets will damage you, but you'll heal that up pretty quickly, and you will take out his turrets and he will just replace them. McCree is an even matchup in my opinion, not because I think you can beat him in a 1v1, no, he will mess you up there, but because I don't think you should ever let him get close enough to you to actually perform the 1v1. Using your speed boost and your knockback, you should never really make him a threat, and if he's coming and you see him coming, retreat to the safety of your team where you should already be, and they will help you out. Tracer is another even matchup in my opinion, simply because you guys kind of play a game of cat and mouse. When she gets close enough to you, you'll knock her back and use your amp it up to get away, and she'll blink to you, and then by the time she gets to you, you'll knock her back again, and by the time all of that's gone down, a teammate will have intervened, and one of you will have died. It's kind of just a mess. Sure, if she gets the drop on you, she can probably kill you, but that's true of most heroes, and I'm trying to keep that in mind when I do these matchups. Almost every hero can kill Lucio if they come up behind him by surprise. I'm trying to keep in mind the fact that a good Lucio player, which you all are after watching my guide, will know the enemy team composition and be watching out in all directions for these heroes coming up behind them, and should also be by their team, so they should never really be singled out by any of these. Junkrat is an even matchup in my opinion, simply because you both have projectiles with low-ish velocities, so it's going to be hard to hit each other. Actually, I think you might have the upper hand in a 1v1 situation sometimes because of your move speed and the fact that your projectiles don't have a drop while his do. Also, you heal over time and he doesn't, or you have a move speed boost. Basically, I think you can play some mind games while you're 1v1ing him, and sometimes can get out ahead. Widowmaker and Hanzo are both in the same boat. I think they're both neutral matchups because you're going to be hard to hit, and they're both snipers which rely on landing headshots. That one is pretty self-explanatory. It's going to be hard for them to hit you, but it's also going to be hard for you to hit them because of your low velocity projectiles and the fact that you're not even meant for combat, so you just kind of avoid them. D.Va is an even matchup because you have an ability that counters every one of her abilities. If she boosts to get close to you, you can knock her back. If she then tries to chase you, you can amp it up and use your speed boost to get away. This is a fight you really don't want to take up close, but luckily you don't have to. You can usually get away from her and then start shooting at her from a distance, which will really just annoy her. Not much more than annoy her because of your low damage and her high armor, but you will annoy her. So it's a kind of a stalemate in that manner. Reinhardt is actually very similar to D.Va in that he does almost all of his damage at close range with the exception of his fire strike, but that's going to be hard to hit, and when he does get close to you, you can knock him back, you can use your move speed boost to get away. Basically at close range, the only area he can actually damage you, you can escape from, and then when you get to long ranges, neither of you will really be damaging each other, so once again, we have an even matchup. You're going to need a teammate here to help tip the scales one way or the other. Zenyatta is probably an even matchup because you really, one, shouldn't even interact with each other. You should both be behind the cover of your own team, just supporting your team. But in the event of a situation where you fight him, he can, he can put his Orb of Discord on you, but then you can use your move speed boost to kind of counter that because he'll be missing some shots due to your move speed, and you will be landing your projectiles due to his low move speed. Symmetra is another one of those people that will deal a lot of damage up close, but you're not going to let them get up close, and in the event of Symmetra's turrets, you can actually use your Sonic Wave to take out a ton of them at once in like an area in front of you, because almost every Symmetra places them close to each other, so you pretty much avoid engagement with each other. It's another one of those, if you're up close, she's going to win because she locks onto you, and if you're far away, honestly, neither of you will probably win because she's going to avoid your projectiles, and you're going to avoid hers because hers move even slower. And the final even matchup is other Lucios, because you're playing the same hero. The key to taking out an enemy Lucio is going to be strategizing with your team and evaluating the enemy team composition to see what method of taking him out will work best. Maybe you need a Widowmaker to snipe him because their team is just dug deep and you can't even break through their lines. Or maybe he's playing really recklessly and you want someone like a Roadhog to get all up close and mess him up. That is all of our hero matchups for today, and that is actually all of our video on playing Lucio as a support. Hopefully I helped you guys. If I did, be sure to tell me down below, and hopefully I also didn't talk too fast. Alright, there is a lot of information, and I don't want this video to be 40 minutes long, so I did talk a little fast. If that annoyed you, or really anything annoyed you, be sure to leave your suggestions down below. I look to make every video I make better than the last one, so any tips you guys have for me are all welcome in the comments. Hopefully you all enjoyed. If you did, be sure to check out my other ultimate guides. I have one right now for Reaper, Genji, and Hanzo that I think are pretty good. And if you really like the channel, consider subscribing or, sharing with your Overwatch playing friends. I will see you guys all later. Hope you all have a great day. Lone Hawk out.